Can you guys give me some sort of musical accompaniment to this?
Mountain High.
I'm not good with the devices. I need an old-fashioned piece of paper to do a promotion here. The Dan Le Batard Show with Stugatz. Where's Stugatz? He's not here.
We're
it's
promoting
on
his show, and he's not here?
DraftKings Network, weekdays at 11 Eastern. It's 100% free to watch on your TV. No subscription required. You don't have a smart TV? DraftKings Network is also available. You can stream it, DraftKingsNetwork.com.
You did well. Why did you sound angry?
Are you looking for Black Friday savings? At Car Buick GMC in Vancouver, nearly every vehicle comes with a lifetime warranty, plus 10 years of roadside assistance, and the price you've been waiting for. There's never a bad time to buy from Car, but now is a great time. Get the savings you want and the lifetime warranty you deserve. Car Buick GMC. We are professional grade, with you all the way, every mile, every day.
It's so easy finding just the right car. Get a lifetime warranty on a car.
Hey guys, Chad here. If you're facing a divorce or custody issue, you do not have to face it alone. The team at Goldberg Jones 1-800-DIVORCE knows dads, and they will protect your rights as a father. My biggest mistake was waiting to make the call. So here's the game plan. Call 1-800-DIVORCE. The consultation comes at no charge. Colin will take your call, look at your situation, and lay out the best plan for you. Whether it's divorce, a custody issue, or prenuptial agreement, Goldberg Jones will provide you with the expertise that you need. Call 1-800-DIVORCE or check them out online at goldbergjones-or.com.
Gillette Intimate gives guys a gentle and easy shave on there. And around there. And even under there. Don't treat your groin like junk. Respect it with Gillette Intimate, the best a man can get. Buy now at a retailer near you.
Get early access to Macy's Black Friday specials and save big on gifts for everyone on your list right now while supplies last. Like winter-ready women's sweaters, $12.99 to $19.99. Fine jewelry, 60 to 75% off. And cozy up to comfy throws, just $9.99 to $39.99. Plus, get your online order even faster with store pickup, now at Macy's. Savings off sale and clearance prices, exclusions apply.
Time is money. At Leifs, we understand that accidents happen when you least expect it. Leifs has a special fast-track repair program for those who need it fixed fast. Call us for details and restrictions. Now, if you're in an accident, call us before you contact your insurer. Let our experts set up your collision claim to ensure you get all you are entitled to. Adjusters are trained to deny. We're trained to defend. Loaners deduct assist. And, of course, we pick up and deliver anywhere in the Northwest. Leifs, the finest in collision repair.
Why is iHeartRadio the #1 streaming radio app? Free music.
Free live radio stations from all over the country.
Free podcasts.
Free playlists.
Free contests. Free artist radio stations.
Commercial-free stations. It's free. I love iHeartRadio. Join the millions of music, radio, and podcast fans on the #1 streaming radio app now.
iHeartRadio.
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 Free never sounded so good.
Save now with BuyMart's latest membership savings book.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
iHeartRadio goes one-on-one with Bryan Adams to discuss how he comes up with song titles.
Yeah, actually, a lot of my song titles are mumbles. With Cuts Like a Knife, it was just like, we used to jam, Jim Valance and I would jam songs together, and I remember we listened back to the tape afterwards, and I said, that sort of sounded like Cuts Like a Knife. Didn't it sound like Cuts Like a Knife? He goes, yeah. And then I play it back, and yes, I said, Cuts Like a Knife, that's cool. And then he'd say, what about Cuts Like a Knife, but it feels so right? I said, that's a good idea. So whatever that means. He makes sense of my mumbles.
Keep listening to iHeartRadio for more Bryan Adams and all your favorite artists.
620 Rip City Radio KPOJ Portland, an iHeart radio station. Listen on your free iHeart Radio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
And here's what you need to know.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, 3 o'clock. What up, Chad here? Huge weekend in the Pac-12 with multiple teams eyeing their conference crown. Utah at Arizona kickoff at 11:30 tomorrow on Pac-12 Network. The Cats are favored by 1. Arizona still has an outside shot at a trip to the Pac-12 title game with 2 conference losses. At 1 on Fox, Oregon meets ASU in Tempe. Ducks favored by 22. Oregon needing a win to keep their playoff hopes alive. And at 4:30, the game of the day, Washington at Oregon State. The Beavers are favored by 1. Pregame at 2:30 on your home of the Beavs, 1190 KX. You can see it on ABC. We'll talk with Dave Softy Mahler from KJR in Seattle coming up at 4. From the NFL, according to reports, Joe Burrow. Say it ain't so, Joe. He may miss the rest of the season after suffering a wrist injury in last night's loss in Baltimore. Your Portland Trailblazers in action tonight. The Lakers are in town, and that tip-off is at 7. I'll have game day at 4:30. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad coming at you right now. All right, what a day, what a day, what a day, and what a show. We have a huge football weekend coming up. The Lakers are in town tonight, so game day will kick off at 4:30. And Godfather, first off, I need more caffeine, as you can tell.
Yes, you do.
Today is so special, and we normally don't do this, but with the game being played tonight in Pullman, Washington State, and Colorado, Shadur Sanders and company coming to town, we get a chance to kick off the show with a guest, our college football and NFL insider, Alex Brink. How does that sound?
You know, it's perfect. I've been geeked up about this show all day today because of our guests. We got Brink on, followed by Softy. You know, that's two of the best guests we have.
Yeah, that's two W's, and he joins us right now. Former Coug, he's with E4 Sports. It's Alex Brink. Alex, I know you're getting close to Pullman now, so I'll ask you this. What's going to be the key for the Cougs tonight to slow down Shadur Sanders?
Yeah, up here in God's country, and honored to kick off the show with you guys. I mean, I think when you talk about Shadur Sanders, he's a special player. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he's incredibly productive throwing the football. He had a couple rushing touchdowns last week for the Buffaloes, and he can break it down in different ways. But the reality for Colorado is that they struggle to protect him. They're next to last in the country in sacks given up. He's taken 3 or more sacks in every game this season. And Washington State, as much as they've struggled, those two bookend defensive ends, Brennan Jackson and R.J. Stone, are special pass rushers. So I think the key is for those two guys to get home and make life tough on Sanders. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions, but if he's got guys in his lap, that's where you could potentially force a turnover.
Alex, I'm curious. We've asked you this before, I think, but I remain puzzled. What's happened to Washington State?
Well, I mean, I think it's obviously a number of things. Anytime something like this happens, it's there's a lot that goes into it. I think the reality for Washington State is, coming into the season, they probably weren't super deep across the board. And when they lost, particularly offensively, when they lost Lincoln Victor, their star slot receiver, and their number one tight end, Cooper Mathers, who are, I think, two safety blankets in the middle of the field for Cam Ward, I think that really affected the offense. I mean, they can't run the football, right? So effectively the way they moved the chains was with those inside slot and tight ends. And so they lost Victor and Mathers for UCLA and Arizona. That hurt them offensively. At the same time, you played some teams that I think were really tough, right? UCLA has proven to be really good defensively. Arizona, obviously, Cougs basically caught Arizona right on their upswing. And it's just a tough league. And then overall for Washington State, they matched up really well, I think, against Oregon State, but probably don't have the team speed defensively to play with some of the faster teams in the league. That's what you saw against Oregon, right? That's what you saw against Arizona. And then when you turn the ball over as much as they have, in 6 games, they've turned the ball over 12 times. You're just not going to win, right? So protecting the football, I think all those things combined, lead to a six straight losses for a team that's, probably an above 500 team for sure, but definitely feels like they've lost a ton after a 4-0 start.
It's Alex Brink on the show as we get ready for a big weekend. I don't need to ask who you're pulling for in the Oregon State-Washington game tomorrow, but it is the game of the day, Alex. So what is the key matchup there for the Beavs and the Huskies?
Key matchup for me is that Oregon State secondary against the Washington Husky offense, particularly those wide receivers. I think Oregon State's a really good defense, but in general, they don't have a ton of speed on the back end. And that's been, where Washington State found a lot of ground against the Beavs was throwing the ball vertically. And that's what UW does, right? Oregon State will beat you up in a phone booth. There's no doubt about it. And they're very aggressive. My fear is that going downfield, Penix and Odunze and, throwing the ball up, that's what they love to do. And that could be a struggle for Oregon State. So that Oregon State secondary, they're going to be up against it. And they're going to need to play really well, I think, for the Beavs to win this game. But I will say Oregon State will be able to run the football on this Washington defense. And if they control this game and they limit the possession, I see no reason why the Bees don't win this game at home.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. Now, I kind of felt you're leading both ways on me now, right now.
Yeah,
Pick a winner for us, Alex.
I buried the lead on you. Yeah, I buried the lead on you. I think Oregon State wins this game. I mean, look, Oregon State has a long track record of winning top 10 football matchups at home. We all know about the USC games back in the early 2000s. Jonathan Smith won a couple as a player himself. Reser is a tough place to play when the Beaver faithful are all in it. And I think Washington, for all the great things they've done this season, they do have some warts. They've shown that they have some challenges, like I said, defensively, and they've been prone on occasion to some turnovers offensively. So I think Oregon State is going to find a way to establish the run, little play action pass with DJU. And I think the defense makes just enough stops for Oregon State to win this game.
And you're speaking from experience because from my understanding, and I saw the stat they put up on TV last year, no quarterback in the Pac-12 history has a better understanding of the Beavs' effectiveness at home than you, right, Alex?
I really didn't want to talk about that, but yeah, they can play well at home. Turn the ball over at home. I had I don't know, 10 or 11 of them in Reser Stadium in my career, so there's no doubt about it.
I'm trying to help him, Dwight, because if he knows how to handle adversity really well, think about what he can do for all the kids he works with in the Elite 11.
But, Chad, he's nice enough to come on with us. You don't have to do that to him. That was a real torpedo there.
All right. I want to ask you about Arizona State because you've had a chance to see them, and I respect the work that Kenny Dillingham is doing this year in spite of all the injuries. But are there any problems that the Sun Devils may present to Oregon this weekend?
The biggest challenge is going to be what Dillingham will present offensively. He's so creative with formations and motions and personnel. He'll find ways to create matchups. I think that it could cause some problems for Oregon's defense at times. I mean, look, Elijah Badger is a really tough cover on the outside. Again, they'll find ways to run the football, but in the end, Oregon is just too fast for Arizona State and has too many weapons. Arizona State defense, they're physical, they're experienced, they're a good, solid group, but look, nothing's slowing down that Oregon offense right now, and I don't think the Sun Devils will be able to do it. So I would expect Oregon to handle this one for sure.
Okay, this week has been a very eventful week for the Pac-2 and the Pac-10 and whatever is in between. Alex, what's your take on what's gone down so far, and what do you think eventually is going to happen?
Well, what I think is going to happen, and was pretty clear during the court case this last week, and I think will be really clear during the appeals process, is that the Pac-2 are going to win this case and assume control of the Pac. I mean, I think that's going to happen, and then from there, I think some pretty cool things could happen. Both, I mean, for everybody. Look, the 10, the hay's in the barn, right? They're all leaving, so I wish them nothing but the best on their way out, but Oregon State have a chance if there's money in the coffers and they have conversations with the right teams over the next 2 years, you could have a really high-quality league rebuilt and continue the tradition of West Coast Pac football that we all know and love. And so I think personally Washington State and Oregon State are going to land on their feet in this thing. I think the biggest question mark now is who are they going to play the next 2 years? And once they figure that out, then we can start talking about what's next. But in the end, I think Washington State and Oregon State are going to come out on top in this whole thing.
Alex, are you surprised that UCLA is considering moving on from Chip Kelly?
A little bit, in the sense that I'm not sure, who they're going to get that's a better fit for them, because, UCLA, the reality of the league UCLA job is it's not that good of a football job. It's a hard place to win. Until they have a stadium on campus, which they'll never have, they're going to really struggle to win. And so Chip Kelly has made a pretty significant commitment to go there. He's obviously getting paid to do it, but, to stick it out and ride the ups and downs. And in my personal opinion, he's really built that program. Their struggles this year, right, they're really good defensively. They just got a young quarterback. He's supremely talented, but, anytime you play a true freshman, they're going to have ups and downs. In my opinion, if they wrote it out with Chip Kelly, they would have another resurgence similar to what happened with DTR, where he builds it up over 3 or 4 years. I just don't think UCLA is a place that's going to win consistently year in and year out the way they would like to. But you're going to a new conference. You got a new AD. It's probably, in a way, kind of the right time if they're going to make this move. I just think it's a bad move.
Alex, I've been wanting to ask you this question. Joe Burrow went down last night, and we've lost another really good quarterback for the rest of the season. And I know the league is trying hard to protect quarterbacks, but I have two questions. Number one, shouldn't teams be looking for more experienced backups instead of having guys that haven't even started a game as their number one backup? And then the other thing is, you think more could be done to protect quarterbacks?
I don't know that more can be done to protect quarterbacks. I mean, look, it's like every rule in the book, it seems, for the last 10 years has been written to protect quarterbacks. So, I think sometimes these things come in waves, right? There's bad luck, and, Burrow hits his hand or whatever on a helmet last week and, ends up being an injury maybe. Like, things like that happen. What I do think is that the NFL has got to figure out the developmental process for young players, and primarily that's quarterbacks. Think about the way Major League Baseball treats the minor leagues, right? The minor leagues are not about all of, every minor league player that's in that system. It's about developing the first and second round draft picks to get to the bigs, right? Well, the NFL has a problem. They have no developmental league for quarterbacks. And so essentially you're rolling the dice in the draft that you're going to get a young quarterback that's, a generational talent, say Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert. But the amount of times you miss and you don't allow that guy to develop, well, now it sets your franchise back 4, 6, 8 years. And to your point about having veterans, you're cycling through veterans fast because their contracts get so big that you don't want to pay them because of salary cap issues and things like that. You don't have young players that are ready to play because you have no system to develop them. And so, in my opinion, they have to figure out a minor league system that allows quarterbacks to develop or create roster rules. Because what happened is, back when I was playing, almost every team used to carry 3 quarterbacks, and then it transitioned to, well, maybe we'll carry 2 quarterbacks and a practice squad player. The practice squad player isn't getting enough reps to get any better. And so that's where the NFL is having a huge issue. They're protecting the quarterbacks, but in a contact sport like football, you can't protect every player along the way, and you've got no way to develop young players.
It's Alex Brink, former Coug and eForce Sports with us. All right, you got to tell me about this. It's pretty cool, but tell me about eForce basketball.
Yeah, I mean, look, eForce Sports is obviously growing. We're doing a lot of great things in the community, baseball, football, training, and now we're adding eForce basketball. So at our Milwaukee facility, just across the river off of 205, we have a great start to our basketball program, some great young coaches. We're focused on development first. It's all about taking young basketball players, getting them the reps and the skills they need to be successful. So check out eForceSports.com. We have camps. We have clinics. We have one-on-one training. We have a little ballers class for ages 5 through 8. We've got high school and middle school training. If you're looking to get better as you head into basketball season, check out eForceSports.com, search basketball, and you can learn all about it.
All right, Alex Brink, dude, you're the man. Thank you for the time. Enjoy the game tonight. Have a good call, and we'll talk next week. We appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Just getting into the rolling hills of the Palouse, so take care. Go Cougs.
All right, God's country, baby. There you go. Alex Brink here on the Rip City Drive. Always enjoy our conversation with Alex.
He's money every time.
I'll tell you what, I'm not excited to watch any more bungle games the rest of the year with no Burrow. That sucks.
I told you my idea. The quarterbacks wear flags like flag football. You can't touch them. You can grab their flag, and that's it. I'm tired of quarterbacks. I'm just like you. I'm not going to watch Cincinnati the rest of the season. The NFL has lost one of their prime attractions. No question.
Absolutely. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the show. When we come back, we have a pair of tickets to give away for Lainey Wilson, so listen to us for your chance to win. Dave Softy Mahler is going to join us at 4. All right, be sure to go to YouTube, youtube.com. You can pull up our homepage, Rip City Radio 620, and subscribe to our page. We have all our live links there for our local shows. Rip City Mornings with Justin Myers, Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad, Blazers Game Day, Fifth Quarter, and Courtside Mondays with Chris Burkhardt. It gives you a chance to hang out with us in studio and take part in the YouTube chat if you so desire. We do have tickets to give away. Lainey Wilson's going to be live in concert September 28th at the RVN Style Resorts Amphitheater. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com, but we have a pair of tickets to give away right now. So let's go ahead and do it with caller number 3, 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. Fire away with your phone calls right now, 503-248-0620. Lainey Wilson, September 28th at the RVN Style Resorts Amphitheater. Your chance to see her live in action. 503-248-0620. Call now. Caller 3 will get a pair of tickets for Lainey Wilson. All right, I've asked you this question every day this week, so I'm going to ask you again, Godfather. Do you still feel the same about the football game tomorrow? You like Washington to win?
Yeah, and it's funny, but I like them for the same reasons that a lot of other people do, and that's the ability that the Huskies have to throw the ball deep, and I'm afraid that's the kryptonite for the Beavers.
All right.
But they have to protect Penix to do that.
Yes.
But I think they will.
And you very well could be right. The downfield passing game is going to be the big concern. Here's why I think the Beavs are going to win, and it really goes back to the game they played, the Huskies, against Arizona State. Arizona State had the right game plan. They just didn't have the personnel to pull off the victory because when they got in the red zone, which was multiple times, they misfired. Poor special teams or quarterback play or the offensive line just not holding up because of injury. But in that game, Godfather, what they did is they committed to running the football. They outrushed Washington 145-13.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the success with the running game, but the intent to run. They committed to running the football, even if that meant having some drives that would stall out. And at the end of the game, they held a 37-22 possession edge.
Wow.
So they limited Washington to 10 possessions in the game. They held the ball for nearly 38 minutes in the game, and they had a commitment and a resolve to just run the football. And I think Oregon State is going to do the same thing. They're going to commit to the run. They're not going to walk away from the run. I don't think we're going to see any patches in the game like we did against Arizona where they get away from what they do. I think they're going to commit to it because they know what you know. And you talked about this before the year began. And they've gotten away from it at times. But
they have.
You talked about the Beavers winning games by shortening the game, running the football, running clock, and shortening the game, meaning taking away possessions from the opponent. The best way for the Beavers to prevent Michael Penix from getting those strikes downfield is to drain the clock, to run the football.
Yeah.
And the one weakness the Huskies have is their defense is not top-notch. You can move the football on them. Utah had a dynamite first half last week, running the football and then setting up their play action and getting some big plays downfield. Arizona State, who was decimated by injuries, was able to move the football on them, as was Stanford, as was Oregon. You're going to have chances. I think the Beavers, you're going to see them run the football like you never have before. They're going to commit to it. They're going to do that. And then I think as the game goes along, there'll be a couple of opportunities for DJU to make a couple of plays in the passing game to put them over the top. That's how I see the game going. You're going to see a massive time of possession edge for the Beavs. It's going to be enough to shorten the game and take some possessions away from Penix, limiting the damage he can do with his receivers downfield. That's how I see it playing out.
All right. For me, every offensive coordinator has two giant red buttons in front of them.
Yeah.
One says pass and one says run.
Yep.
And those guys, almost all of them, they want to keep reaching for that pass button.
Yep.
Even when they shouldn't, they just keep, and it's like somebody's got to be there to slap their hand. Maybe that's Jonathan Smith tomorrow slapping Lindgren's hands. And no, we're going to stick to the run. Because I've waited for them to do that a lot this year, and they seem to can't resist throwing the ball sometimes, even on first down or second down. And I understand that you've got to be balanced and you're trying to mix it up a little bit. This may not be the game to mix it up. This might be the game to just run it down their throats.
Yeah.
Think second half against the Ducks last season. Think about that. Maybe this is the game to do that. If they can do that and shorten the game, I think Washington has thrived on those multi-possession games where they have the ball many times, run a lot of plays, and it works for them because it makes their margin for error bigger.
Yeah.
And I think you need to make that smaller by limiting their possessions.
I agree. I also think the Beavs are going to win the special teams game tomorrow. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a score, but it could be kick coverage or returns setting up their offense to have shorter fields to work with. I just think they're going to pull out all the stops. But I think this game, the Beavers were created. This version of the Beavers was created for this type of game right here. They know who they are. I think last week helped remind them of who they are. They're a physical, pro-style offense that wants to jam the football down your throat, and they've got multiple backs to do it. So don't be afraid of who you are. Don't worry about what's on the other side. Just go out there and get after it. And here's the best part. If they do that and they commit to running the football and you take possessions away from Penix, what's going to happen is their offense, their offensive coordinator, their quarterback, they'll start to press because they're under pressure. They need to win in order to have a shot at the playoff. And what they'll do is you start forcing the football downfield because you need to make something happen because you know when you give the football up, their Beavers are going to have it for another 4 or 5, 6 minutes. I like that pressure that the running game can create on the other team, which can cause some error or mistake and create turnovers from that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, though, for all the problems that the Huskies seemingly have had in the second half of the season, it has gotten them used to playing close games, being close in the second half. Teams have stayed with them for a half, and they're kind of accustomed to playing that kind of game. It should be a great game. Really looking forward to watching it.
I love it because both teams know they're really good. Both teams have a lot of confidence right now. You and I were talking about this yesterday. I still can't believe it. The Huskies haven't lost since early last year in October.
Yeah.
I was at that game at Arizona State. They haven't lost a freaking game since then.
Yeah, it's 17 in a row, right?
Yeah, that's the thing is that, and you know this, like you when you develop a winning culture, you can develop a losing culture. But when you're in a lot of games and you win 17 in a row and you win a lot of close games, there's a certain confidence and belief that when they get in those moments that we're going to find a way to overcome.
It's an expectation.
Yeah.
It becomes an expectation. You don't even consider the alternative. We're going to figure out some way.
We got this.
Yeah.
And that's huge because a lot of teams will play close games, but they always come up on the losing end.
Yeah.
So the reverse happens when they get in those spots. It's like, oh, crap, we're going to screw up again.
In sports, you see this over and over on both sides, both ways.
So I'm looking forward to the matchup that way. I think it's a huge game for Jonathan Smith. Obviously, it's a big game for Washington. But for the Beavers, and you know this, Godfather, like if they win that game tomorrow, it washes away the sins of the 2 losses they have to Washington State and Arizona because you get a win against one of the best teams in the country, and it propels you into that game against Oregon knowing that if we beat them in their crib, we're in the Pac-12 title game. That's huge. They would have everything they want right in front of them if they can pull off that win tomorrow. That game tomorrow's got everything. Emotion, pressure, stakes are incredibly high, great coaching, great players.
Yeah.
And I like these two teams too because there's a lot of experienced players on both sides of the ball for both teams.
Including quarterback.
Including quarterback, which usually makes for great football. Gosh, I love everything about it. And I think DJU is a great asset to have in these type of moments because I've watched him throughout the season. He doesn't panic. He doesn't get – I don't see him frustrated or gripping at the end of games.
I agree with that.
He's the same guy. And Penix is the same way. They show him on the sideline in some of these games in like a tie game or a tight game or they're down. He doesn't look worried at all. You know the players feed off of that. Penix is not in the huddle frantic. He's in the huddle like, okay, we're going to go down and get it here.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a great chance for Reser Stadium to really step up and show people nationally what kind of a tough place it can be to play.
Yeah, it's time to get that chainsaw going. Get that thing revved up and ready to roll.
Yeah.
But the best way, the Beavers are a tough team. And like Alex Brink said, you're going to, if they have you in a phone booth, they're going to beat the crap out of you. I like that type of mentality because, man, when you're throwing Martinez and Fenwick at teams, no one wants to play that way. No one wants to deal with that. So that's why if you commit to it and you start to wear them down, I don't care how good they are. Teams don't want to deal with that because those guys, they come at you, and you got to get the physical mindset that it takes to play a game like that. It's tough.
Yeah, and it starts to snowball.
Yeah.
After a certain time, it gets worse and worse and worse.
This game's got everything. It's huge, huge game. And for the Beavs, think about the confidence they would have going into that game against Oregon with, coming off a blowout, dominant win over Stanford and a victory over Washington going into that game against Oregon. They would have a feel like, hey, we finally have hit our stride. It took us a while with a new quarterback and the new pieces in our secondary, but we finally have hit our stride.
And the last Civil War game becomes the biggest Civil War game, right?
Of all.
Winner goes to the title game, right?
That's so good. It's everything I want to see. I really do. But I do respect Penix. And the problem is, Godfather, you know this, like, those receivers are so good. You can have great coverage, and they can still outwork you. They can high point the ball. They're physical.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can play perfect defense, and that type of offense will overcome that. That's how good they are.
Yeah, they have good speed, too. They can outrun you. That's kind of scary for Oregon State.
I think the other Achilles heel, I know they ran the ball surprisingly dominant against USC. But I still think Washington has a weakness of not running the football the way that you would want, to have enough balance. And if they can't get off and have some form of balance, it does help the Beavs out to know they're going to pass it every down.
Yeah. And I think the critical thing for Oregon State, you've got to get pressure on Penix. If you can't pressure him, you're in real trouble because that gives him the time to throw the ball deep. If you can rush him, if you can hurry him, he's human. I've seen him, he unloads the ball a little too quick sometimes if he feels the rush coming. And they've got to make it tough on him all day long.
Yeah. It would be risky to throw blitzes at him. He's so good.
Yeah, I know.
You're right. You got to get him off his platform. You got to hurry up his process a little bit because you're right. When he has time to sit there and then step up and deliver, he's as good as anyone in the country.
And by now, as many games as they've played, and he's played for 2 years now there, he's seen every coverage you can throw. You're not going to fool him too much with any coverages.
The game is so big because, with Washington right now, they don't know how long it's going to be until they have another Michael Penix, right? He's as good as it gets at that position in college. And they're undefeated, and they've got a chance to get to the playoff. And in this year where there's more parity than ever, they've got a chance to do something special. And for Oregon State, this team right now is loaded. And you've got Jonathan Smith, and you've got this uncertainty heading into the future with the conference dissolving.
Yeah.
You got to capitalize because it could change in a matter of weeks, right? That's why you got to capitalize on the opportunity now. That's what makes this game so great. Because everyone thinks, we'll get back. We'll have another chance. You don't know. You do not know. And players like Michael Penix and the team that the Beavers have put together, it doesn't happen all the time. Like the Ducks have had a lot of good football teams over the last 20 years. Not like this team.
Yeah, for sure. Now, with Lanning there, they might get on a run. It wouldn't surprise me. But they're going into a lot tougher league than what they're playing in right now. And we've talked about how tough the Pac-12 is this year. You're going to the Big Ten. Get used to that.
That schedule is brutal. And Bo Nix, if you look at his numbers right now compared to Mariota's numbers in 2014 when they went to the championship game, basically identical.
Mm-hmm.
Great production. Bo Nix has been sensational. And I credit Bo Nix and Michael Penix. Penix, coming from Indiana, the story on him, Godfather, injury prone. He put the work in, got his body right, and he has revamped the entire way that we all look at his game. And now he's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL. And the same thing with Bo Nix. He was considered a disaster leaving Auburn.
Yeah.
Within 2 years, he's now going to be a first-round pick. It's amazing what those guys have done.
I can't say it often enough. Last year, before the season, we talked to several SEC experts, and we talked Bo Nix, and they were all, I don't know. He'll be okay, but nobody was very excited about him.
Well, what's amazing, too, is a lot of times, players make the decision to come back, and then it's not always the best decision. These two guys have come back, and they're playing better football now than they were last year.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was possible. How do you put up a repeat performance? They were both Heisman-like players last year, and they're better this year. That's pretty awesome.
I think in both cases, the coaches were able to get even better players surrounding them, and that does make a difference. I mean, Oregon's supporting cast this year is top-notch.
Top-notch. And for Beaver fans, I know they're never satisfied, but you got freaking DJU.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Who would have thought that?
The weather going to be a factor tomorrow? Is it going to rain?
Yeah, I believe it is.
Crapola.
Late, I think they're saying late in the day.
Rain would benefit the Beavs, would it not? With their ability to run the football?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
I guess it depends on how much it rains.
Yeah, it does. The old school thought, is that rain helps a passing team. And people always say, because in today's world, they keep the football pretty dry, and that receiver knows where he's going, and the DB doesn't. So you see a lot of slips in the secondary trying to change directions. And that's what they used to say in the old, and I think it's still fairly true. Used to be more true on natural grass, which was pretty slippery at times.
You think Oregon rolls tomorrow? Any issues for the Ducks?
I do. Yeah. Yeah, I think they will. It's not going to be easy. They'll probably give up a few more points than they want to.
Yeah, Arizona State's defense has been terrific all year. They're just so battered with the injuries on offense that their defense is good enough to compete with the Ducks. I just don't know if they're going to be able to get the offensive production with the issues they've had on the offensive line to be able to score enough. That's the issue. I just don't think they'll be able to put enough points up on the board. Two of the best games I've seen in person over the last few years. I was at both the games in 17 when they had Justin Herbert and in 19 when they had Justin Herbert, and they lost both games down there. They were both sensational football games. Jaden Daniels, who's now at LSU, threw that touchdown pass to Brandon Ayuk, who's now at the 49ers on third down and 18. For some reason, Cristobal had his team out there playing press coverage, and Ayuk went straight down the sideline for a touchdown.
Yeah.
So normally those trips are tough, but Arizona State's just battered by injuries. That's all. It sucks for,
Dillingham.
Yeah, Dillingham, because he wants – this is a game he would like to have.
Yeah.
Coaches like the competition going up against, their colleagues, guys they've worked with, and he and Lanning have a lot of respect for one another. This is a game where he'd like to go out there and compete, but just doesn't have the horses.
Do you think it's a little bit of an advantage for him having been in Eugene and knowing their personnel?
Absolutely, because now Dillingham, probably better than anyone in the country, knows Bo Nix's strengths, his weaknesses, what you need to do to throw him off his game. So I would imagine being the ASU defensive coordinator this week's actually been very nice because you're getting plenty of intel from your head coach on what to do.
Yeah.
And even though the offense is a little bit different, they've kept a lot of the same schemes and ideas to make sure that Nix is comfortable. So, yeah, their defense will be well prepared. But this is a perfect example of talent. A lot of times you can line up and know exactly what's coming at you, but in this case, the talent on the other side of the ball, Oregon's just going to be able to physically outman them.
Yeah. And the speed there's a big difference there, I think.
That spin move by Tez Johnson last week when he just went down the sideline.
That was crazy, wasn't it?
He spun, and then somehow he went straight into 4-3 mode instantly. I've never seen a guy accelerate so quickly. I was like, wow. He pulled away from everybody.
He hit the gas pedal and was gone.
My hamstrings almost both popped just seeing that.
Yeah, I know.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah.
I like that. Get the chainsaws ready. Do you think Softy's prepared for all the chainsaws he's going to hear tomorrow?
Well, he thinks he is, but we'll see when he gets here.
I told you, man, I wanted my dad wouldn't let me do it. I wanted to use a chainsaw so bad up in Colorado.
Yeah, you're lucky he didn't. They'd be calling you Peg Leg right now.
Peg Leg. All right, you got the Rip City Drive Softies at 4. All right, something's got to give tomorrow. The Washington Huskies are 50th in the nation in rush defense. The Oregon State Beavers 73rd against the pass.
Oh, man.
Yards to be had.
Yeah, I think we know how that game's going to break down, huh?
Yeah. All right, Dave Sopti-Mahler is going to talk football with us coming up at 4. He's heading down to Corvallis tomorrow. He'll be down there for the game. I would imagine he's pretty jacked up right now.
Oh, gosh.
We'll see if we can get him frustrated and going crazy a little bit coming up at 4. We'll also ask him about the chainsaw and see if he's prepared for what he's going to hear tomorrow down there at Reser Stadium.
Yeah, Softy's like the best guest ever for like Oregon versus Washington stuff.
Yeah. Do you want to hear a little Steve Kerr talking Draymond?
Yeah, I heard a little of that, Chad, and I kind of liked it. I like Steve anyway, but this is good stuff.
All right, the question he was asked was, now that you've had a chance to see the tape, do you think that Draymond may have gone a little bit too far with his attempted murder of Rudy Gobert?
Yes.
So here's what Steve Kerr had to say.
Yes, he definitely took it too far. I didn't have a problem with him getting Rudy off of Clay because, the rule of thumb is you don't put your hands on another player on the other team. You get your own guy. And so I thought Rudy was wrong for putting his arms on Clay, regardless of his intentions. So I had no problem with Draymond getting him off of him, but he's got to let go. And he hung on for 6-7 seconds. And it was a terrible visual for the league, for Draymond, for everybody. So Draymond was wrong. He knows that. It's a bad look. The 5 games is deserved, and we move forward.
A quick follow-up to that, too, because Draymond's fire and passion, you've talked about it. We all know how important that is to this team and what you guys have accomplished. But the league has also said, in this statement and then also back in that Kings series when he was suspended, like his past actions continue to play a role in these decisions. So how does he, the organization, navigate those types of things and making sure this doesn't continue to happen?
It's a great question, and it's something we are working hard on behind the scenes. Draymond has to find a way to not cross the line. And I'm not talking about, getting an ejection and getting a technical. I'm talking about, a physical act of violence. I mean, that's inexcusable, and so we have to do everything we can to give him the help and the assistance that he needs to be able to draw that distinction between being, an incredible competitor, which he's always been. That's why he's in the position he is. That's why he's the player he is. But he can't cross that line, and he crossed it the other night for sure.
Pretty good response from a head coach.
World needs more of that accountability and coaches not necessarily just alibying for their players, but actually telling it like it is. I thought that was really honest from him. And he's got to have a great relationship with Draymond to be able to talk like that in public to the media and get away with it. Because a lot of players that hold that against you. Maybe he will. I don't know.
I love the response because he didn't toss it aside like it's just Draymond being Draymond. He admired him for being a good teammate and the energy and passion he plays with that makes him a great player, but said, getting a player off of one of your teammates, fine. Putting him in a chokehold and holding on for 6 or 7 seconds is crossing the line.
Yeah. Yeah. It's violence. And he's right. It was not a good look.
My guess is Steve Kerr did not tell Draymond when he punched Jordan Poole, that's all right. He deserved it. Yeah. No, it's like, I understand you're frustrated. I understand he was talking mess. And I know that other teammates have an issue with that. But that particular way that you went about it is not how you handle that.
Right. And Chad, talking about a good look, a lot of the video showed Steve out there trying to get Draymond off him.
Yeah.
Saying, let him go, let him go. And that look on Steve's face was, he's a little concerned that maybe somebody might die in that altercation,
Yeah.
And don't take me literally, folks. I don't mean die, but serious problem.
And Kerr knows that Rudy Gobert is a player that many players around the league would like to take a swing at because
For
he's
sure.
Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
But that doesn't justify the action.
No.
So that's a perfect answer. And I think that's a good way to look at Draymond. I respect the heck out of the guy because he answers every question when he's talking to the press. He was the best player in the locker room to talk to after every single game. And he would never walk away when there was someone with a microphone needing to ask questions. I respect that. I also respect the fact that he brings an old school element to the game. He plays physical basketball. He's a great defender. He understands the game. He's smart. I look at him in the same way I do Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman is a Hall of Famer, one of the best basketball players I've ever seen. But there were also times where his antics were over the top.
Yeah.
And too much. So there's a fine line there. You can have colored hair and play with energy and have fun, but when you're kicking a cameraman or you're doing things to take away from the game, that's where you cross the line.
Well, and I like what Steve said, too. It's like, no, the technical fouls and the ejections, that's not what he's talking about. And, I mean, he's willing to overlook the ejections, which a lot of coaches would be really upset about.
Yeah.
Because he understands that's just part of Draymond being Draymond. But the violent part of it, that doesn't have any place.
Yeah, protecting your teammates is fine. Choking a guy out,
yeah,
that was unnecessary.
Yeah.
He didn't have to put him in a chokehold and try to squeeze the life out of him to get his hands off of Clay.
Yeah, I think the rear naked choke should be confined to the cage in UFC. That's where it should be.
At the same time, if Clay is getting attacked by another player on the opposing team and Draymond did nothing, Kerr would have a problem with that too. It's like, hey, you got to protect your guy.
A lot of people had a problem with Karl Anthony Towns not coming to the rescue of his teammate, Rudy Gobert.
Well, you know what's funny? The biggest thing I noticed in that whole scrum was not Draymond choking out Rudy Gobert. It was the lack of defense that the teammates gave to Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
That tells you a couple of different things. One, they may not care about Rudy, but two, teams that aren't together, they do things like that.
That's right.
And I don't care if you like your teammate or not. If someone is going after one of your guys, you have to be there to protect them.
That's family versus family.
It's like on the football field, like in the game tomorrow. If someone takes a cheap shot at DJU, I expect every offensive lineman to get up in the face of that defender and say, you don't do that again or we're going to get you.
Yeah.
You have to make that clear. It's just the way the game is played. You have to show that you can't cross the line and do that to our guy. We're going to kick your ass.
Yeah.
You protect your teammates. But I didn't see anyone going out of their way to risk a suspension or getting fined to protect Rudy Gobert.
Not for Rudy, no.
Right?
He's not a likable guy, from what I understand.
Now, if Mike Conley goes down, the entire team would be there to kick their ass.
You're not kidding. Of course, Mike Conley, I don't think has ever had isn't he the one player that's never had a technical foul in his entire career?
He's one of the coolest NBA guys I've ever come across.
Yeah.
He's played a long and great career, and I've never heard a word about him.
Yep.
He's just a steady son of a gun. He's so good.
Wants to win, doesn't care at all about his own stats.
Gosh.
Any
Yeah.
team would love to have him.
Oh, he's great. I love Mike Conley. All right, when we come back, he's loud, he's obnoxious, and he's a husky honk.
He's not obnoxious. Come on.
He's obnoxious.
Oh.
Dave Softy Mahler up next.
And here's what you need to know. From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, it's 4 o'clock. Chad is here. What's going on, my friends? The Oregon State Beavers are going to be taking on the Washington Huskies tomorrow. It's the game of the day in college football. Kickoff is at 4:30. Pregame at 2:30 on your home of the Beavs, 1190 KEX. Right now, Oregon State is favored by 1. Dave Softy Mahler from 93.3 FM and KJR in Seattle going to join us coming up in just a couple of minutes. Oregon will be at Arizona State down in Tempe. The Ducks are favored by 22. Kickoff at 1. It'll be on Fox. And on the Pac-12 Network at 11:30, Utah at Arizona. The Cats are favored by a point, and Arizona still has an outside shot at the Pac-12 title game. The Blazers are in action tonight. Lakers are in town. Tip-off from Moda Center is at 7. I'll have Blazers game day coming up at 4:30. More of the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad coming at you right now.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad, presented by Lazy Boy. What is your strategy for comfort?
All right, Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Always happy to welcome our good friend from our sister station, 93.3 KJR FM up in Seattle. It's Dave Softy Mahler. What's up, Softy?
What is going on, Beaver Nation? How are you? What's going on down there?
Dude, it's all good. The game of the day tomorrow in Corvallis. It's going to be awesome. I know you're coming down tomorrow morning, so we can't wait for the action. I want to start with this because I want your take on it. If you look at the college football playoff rankings right now, Washington, they have 3 wins against current top 25 teams. Florida State has 1 against current top 25 teams, but yet Washington is 5, Florida State is 4. What's up with that?
Well, I don't know why you even bother asking me. You know what I'm going to say. It's ridiculous. It's 1,000% ridiculous. And this is not just Softy, the Washington homer in Seattle, talking about how ridiculous it is that UW is ranked behind Florida State. The entire effing country is saying the same thing, right? We had Rick Neuheisel on the radio show yesterday saying the same thing on TV and radio. Writers, broadcasters, radio people, whatever. Everybody looks at that and says this is nonsense. And look, obviously, in the end, it's all going to sort itself out. But if it's going to sort itself out in the end, then why don't we just wait until the end to have rankings? I mean, what the hell is the point of rankings if we're going to do them wrong, right? I mean, right now, UW deserves to be ahead of Florida State. And honestly, guys, I can make an argument that UW deserves to be ahead of Michigan with the resume that they put together this year. The only thing Michigan's done is beaten Penn State. That's it. UW has a better win than both Michigan and Florida State, and they have 2 more top 25 wins than both those teams do. So don't tell me that UW needs to be number 5. They should be number 3, let alone number 4. The whole thing's a freaking joke, man, and you know it.
You know, Softy, honestly, we look at the whole thing, the rankings and everything now, and you speak about jokes. I think there's a case to be made that an undefeated Washington team is the only chance the Pac-12 has of getting a team to the Final Four.
Well, look, yeah, Dwight, first of all, here's the problem. I think the committee is showing you with their rankings that they have no respect for the Pac-12 whatsoever, right? None, okay? Yeah. Because in no coherent world should UW be behind Florida State. That's number 1. Number 2, it concerns me that they would lose all ties, right? That Washington is not going to win any ties with anybody in the committee. And if Alabama wins out and they beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, and Florida State runs the table, and they have a very, very easy schedule. I mean, for example, tomorrow, while I'm driving down to Corvallis to watch the Beavers and the Dogs play, Florida State is going to be getting ready to take on North Alabama, all right, which is just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that Florida State, in the second-to-last game of the regular season, is playing North Alabama, while a team like Washington is playing the Beavers in Corvallis. That's number 2. So if they go undefeated, whoever wins the Michigan-Ohio State game likely ends up making the Final Four. I don't know if Georgia gets knocked out with 1 loss, if that 1 loss is a close game to Alabama in the SEC championship game when they've been number 1 pretty much the majority of the season. So I could see Alabama running the table. I could see Georgia making the Final Four. I could see the winner of the Michigan-Ohio State game making the Final Four. And then I could see Florida State making the Final Four. So, Dwight, I think you're right. Unless UW runs the table, they may get left out.
And you haven't even mentioned Texas holding that victory in Tuscaloosa over Alabama, the claim they might have to bump the Pac-12 out of the way.
No, I think you're right that the Pac-12 needs to have an undefeated team to get into the Final Four. I mean, this is why you got to have the 12-team playoff, man. This would have been perfect for next year, a perfect scenario for next season. But, look, I mean, Oregon fans probably feel the same way that I do about Washington, that right now it's Final Four or bust. It's Heisman Trophy ceremony or bust, for Bo Nix and Michael Penix. And we thought this was possible when we talked about this game earlier in the year when UW played Oregon in Seattle, that may not be the last time these two teams get together. And it certainly looks like they're on a collision course for Vegas. So Utah beats Arizona on Saturday morning, and it's done. UW is in the Pac-12 championship, but I know they'd rather get there by beating the Beavers in Corvallis.
All right, Softy, just so you know where I stand, I don't care about the beauty contest in college football, but it is. I respect teams who find ways to win even when they don't have their best stuff, and that's Washington over the last few weeks. Really, ever since the Arizona State game, they haven't been razor sharp. What are the issues that are preventing Washington from looking like the team that was dominant early?
Well, first of all, nobody really cares where you stand, Chad, to be honest with you. It's just about me and Dwight right now. I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. The issues are, go back to the 1991 Husky football season. I mean, Dwight, you remember that 91 national title team here up in Seattle?
I do.
They had close calls with Cal, and they had close calls with USC. I mean, this stuff happens, man. When you're on the road to winning 10, 11, 12 games and, one loss or an undefeated season, sometimes you're not going to bury everybody. You're going to get everybody's best shot. Washington has been walking around since the end of last year with a fat bullseye on their back, okay? And now they're getting the best teams have to offer. I can go game by game and tell you what was wrong in each individual game if you want. Arizona State, they had some guys banged up on the offensive line. They had a pure freshman playing center in that game, and they got overrun in the middle of the offensive line in that game. The defense was phenomenal against Arizona State that day. Utah, they're playing a top 25 team. They shut them out in the second half after kind of goofing around in the first half. That's the way these things go, man. So UW is battle tested. That's the great thing about these games is that they have been in fourth quarter games and they found a way to win every single one of them. If they get locked up in a battle tomorrow at Reeser in the fourth quarter against Oregon State, that's not going to be anything new to this UW football team, guys. Nothing.
Okay, answer me this now. Oregon State's favored by a point today. It was as high as 2.5 points earlier in the week.
Right.
I don't get that. Explain that to me, please.
Well, the money coming in on Oregon State, obviously, a lot of cash coming in on them, number one. And number two, I just think the entire country has been waiting for UW to drop a football game, right? I mean, God, we've been hearing for about a month and a half or so, Oregon's a better team. Oregon's blowing teams out of the water. They're going to beat UW in the rematch in the Pac-12 championship game, blah, blah, blah. The entire world seems like they've been waiting, Dwight, for UW to drop a football game, but I love it for Washington. Look, I mean, who knows in the end if it'll really mean anything. This is the kind of stuff you talk about before the game, and maybe by kickoff it means nothing. But Jamarcus Shepard, for example, I'm glad you brought that up. Jamarcus Shepard, the wide receivers coach at UW, loves the fact that Washington is an underdog.
Sure.
He loves going on the road and having the opposing team's fans tell his wide receivers that they stink. Check this out. This was Jamarcus Shepard earlier this week talking about what he wants from the Reeser Stadium crowd.
We really, truly thrive in these types of environments when our back are against the wall. That's when we're at our best, and so my hope and prayer is that when we get there, they're as rowdy and vicious, and I want them to know names of our players, talk bad about their parents, talk bad about their girlfriends. Give us every single piece of motivation that's going to allow us to play our best because we're going to need it.
There you go. Jamarcus Shepard wants you to hammer the Husky players when they come out of that tunnel on Saturday at Reeser Stadium. So you bet your ass, man. They are playing up the underdog role big time in Seattle.
Hey, what's your take on the job Jonathan Smith has done with that program since he left Washington?
Phenomenal. I mean, is there really a debate about it, right? I mean, I'm not saying that you're not thinking that, Chad. I'm sure you agree with me, but if any Oregon State fan doesn't drop to his knees and thank the day that Jonathan Smith came to Corvallis to be the head coach of the Beavers, you got to get your head examined, man. I mean, this guy is, I think he's one of the premier offensive minds in college football. And what he's done for that university, what he's done on that campus with what he's got to work with has been insane. The fact that he's sitting here, as Dwight just mentioned, as a favorite against the number 5 undefeated team in the country, on the 18th of November shows you how much progress Jonathan Smith has made as the head coach in Corvallis. So, I mean, DJ Ungalele was a 5-star recruit out of high school, went to Clemson, probably could have gone anywhere, and decided to go to Corvallis, for God's sakes. Little Corvallis, Oregon, is where that guy decided to go play college football, and he did it because of Jonathan Smith. So I think he's phenomenal. If Kalen DeBoer ever takes off at UW, I'd love to have Jonathan back up here coaching the Dogs. I think it's going to be hard to keep him in Corvallis, right, especially with all the job offers he's going to get. Hopefully you can play on the idea that he's an alum. He played quarterback there. He knows the city. He loves the community. He's got people there he obviously appreciates. So I think it's a freaking gift from the gods that Jonathan Smith is the head coach at Oregon State.
Softy, what's your biggest concern for the Dogs heading into the game tomorrow?
Tackling, simply put, tackling. Fenwick, Martinez, Uangalele on the ground, things like that. I'm not sure if I really fear the Oregon State wideouts, to be honest with you. I know you got a great tight end. There's no question about that. But tackling's been a problem for the Huskies in the last maybe couple of games. Really the last maybe couple of months, tackling's been an issue for them. You know, they had problems bringing down guys like Bucky Irving in the game with the Oregon Ducks. They had problems bringing down Caleb Williams. They had problems bringing down USC's running backs in that game. So tackling has been a major problem for this football team. The coaches continue to put the Huskies in the right spot, and they continue to not make plays, man. So I'm very curious to see the job they do against that Oregon State backfield and DJ when he takes off and starts to run.
We're talking with Dave Softy Mahler here on the Rip City Drive as we get ready for Oregon State and Washington tomorrow. So in your mind, what's the key? How do they win that game, the Dogs?
They win the game by exposing, I think, an average pass defense for the Beavers. You take away guys like Chatfield, you know. I mean, the Huskies played Utah last week, and they played Jonah Ellis, that big defensive end for Utah, and he did nothing. He was a non-factor in the game against the Dogs because they ran right to him and they went away from him with the pass, rolling Penix out to his left, who can do that as a left-handed quarterback. You saw that against USC with that great throw to Devin Culp. So I think you take away Chatfield. You know, look, the guy's got good numbers. He's got 9 sacks, right? But I noticed that 7 of them came in 3 games against Stanford, Colorado, and San Diego State. So I think you can get by the Oregon secondary. I think you can get over the top on this Oregon State secondary. I think UW's going to get back to their roots this game on Saturday and start firing bombs all over the place on that Oregon State defense.
Okay, I'm real curious about this, Softy, because I haven't heard you speak about it. What's your take on the current Pac-2 and the legal battle with the 10 teams that are leaving and maybe the future of Washington State and Oregon State?
Well, I don't mind. I don't blame Oregon State and Wazoo, Dwight, for doing what they're doing, right? Yeah. I mean, if I were a fan of either one of those teams, I'd want every damn penny I could get. I would be bitter. I'd be angry. I'd be pissed off. I'd be frustrated, and I would want every penny I could get my hands on. But I don't think it's going to go down like that, man. I think in the end you're going to see more of a revenue split of whatever money is left over. I think the idea that Oregon State and Wazoo just split that $400 million right down the middle and everybody else walks away with nothing, I don't see that happening at all. I mean, this is a divorce, right? And whether you want to get divorced or not, if your wife leaves you, she gets half, bottom line, right? At least that's the way it is in this state. I'm not sure how you guys do it down there, but in Washington, and trust me, I've been through it, I know, Washington is a 50-50 state, baby. So this is a divorce, and I think the funds likely will be split up with a slight favor, percentage-wise, to Oregon State and Wazoo. But I think in the end, the idea that the other 10 schools are getting nothing, I just don't see that happening, guys.
Softy, I'm a big advocate for putting them in a room and locking them in there. Let them negotiate something and save all the attorney fees because that's going to be a lot of money.
Well, no question. And in the end, the fans just end up paying the price for that. The students pay the price for that. And what I mean by that is the more money you spend, the more jobs you got to cut. The more money you spend, the more sports you may have to cut, right? Things like that. So that's my biggest concern, guys, is that for Oregon State and Wazoo, with the media revenue dropping starting next year, they're going to have to make some changes. Arizona, you guys know their financial situation. They're in gigantic trouble financially in Tucson. Wazoo, Oregon State, the same thing, man. So I'm a fan of that. Lock him in there. You know, don't let him leave until they figure out an agreement. And let's just save everyone the headache, and let's keep as many people employed as possible.
You know, Softy, you're one of the best in the country, and I'm sure you know that better than we do. But we really appreciate you coming on. But I got one more for you. Cincinnati lost Burrow last night, and Browning has to go in the game. We haven't seen much of him since he's hit the NFL. What do you expect out of him? You've seen him up close and personal.
I think he's just what he is last night. He's a backup quarterback. I don't think he's a starter in the NFL. And I love Jake. I love Jake for what he did in college. He was the 2016 Pac-12 Player of the Year, hung 70 points on Oregon, ended the streak, had the great point right in the guy's face across the goal line. Remember that play in 2016? So he's a legend in a lot of ways. Not like Jake is for what he did at Washington, but he's got a lot of physical limitations, doesn't have the strongest arm. I think you saw that in the game last night. But if you need a guy to manage the offense for you while Joe Burrow sits out a half or a couple of drives to get his pinky taped up, he can be that guy for you. But now that Burrow's out for the year, I don't know, man. I think Browning's going to struggle to keep this team afloat in Cincinnati. If you're a Bengal fan, you're kind of looking towards next year already, in my opinion.
So who do you like tomorrow?
I like the Dogs tomorrow. I know that's shocking to hear me say that. Right? Yeah. I like the Dogs. I just think I've had it, Chad, in my head the entire week, and maybe I'm going to eat my words tomorrow at about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. Maybe I'll rue the day that I said this, but I just feel like the Huskies are the better football team. I think they have better players than Oregon State does, and I think the weakness of Oregon State's defense plays right into the hands of the Husky offense, and that's the passing game. And look, the defense is not great. Nobody's going to argue that this defense is the 85 Bears for crying out loud, but they had a great second half against Utah. They played a physical game against Utah. If they can just find a way to tackle and start wrapping people up, I think it might be a long day for Oregon State. So, look, again, I'll just tell you, my brain's been telling me all week long that UW's going to win this game, and it may not be close, to be honest with you.
Wow. All right, get used to this about 1 billion times tomorrow.
I have been playing that on my show the entire week and leaving practice on Tuesday afternoon. The Huskies had a staffer with a portable speaker literally running around the stadium, shoving that thing in players' faces with that chainsaw sound effect playing the entire time. It's almost as annoying as the USC fight song, which we hear all week long before the Huskies play USC. So I'm ready for it, baby. We've been playing the chainsaw all freaking week long, and they play that on third downs. Is that right down there? Third downs a lot? Okay,
they play it all the time. Yeah, if they get rolling,
well,
it's just going to be on loop, nonstop. I can guarantee you that. One other question for you. I know that you like to go...
All's fair.
I didn't hear you. What was that?
How satisfying would it be for you to see the Dogs take out the Ducks not once but twice?
I mean, can I really tell you how I feel on the air? I mean, are we recording this? Can you edit it out, for God's sakes? I mean, it would basically, let's face it, it would turn me on a lot if that happened, okay? My worst nightmare, guys, I'll be honest with you, my worst nightmare is the Huskies going to Vegas and getting beat by Oregon, and Bo Nix wins the Heisman Trophy over Michael Penix because of that performance in the game.
Yeah.
That's my absolute worst freaking nightmare, is that happening. Hey, look, I already booked my tickets to New York City just in case Michael Penix is there.
Wow.
And guys, I would hope that both of you would agree that just getting to the ceremony is a major stinking accomplishment.
Yes.
Right? Whether it's Bo Nix
Yeah.
or Penix or whoever, being in New York as one of the top 4 players in college football is an unbelievable accomplishment. So I hope that both guys are there. And I've had this feeling for a while that whoever wins the game in Vegas is going to make the Final Four, and that guy wins the Heisman Trophy. So bring it on, baby.
All right.
But we got to get by tomorrow first. Don't you get me talking about Vegas yet, pal.
I know. Softy 93.3 FM KJR up in Seattle.
Telling you, all week long. I'm
That's
hearing
great.
that in my nightmares, dude.
You're the best.
Thanks,
I'll
buddy.
see you guys later.
He's awesome. I love Dave Softy Mahler. 93.3 FM up in Seattle.
One of the best in the country, right? We're agreed on that.
Yes, I should have known that he would have a chainsaw handy.
Yeah.
He's great.
How do you feel about this idea? Washington, Oregon, in that championship game, the winner of the game, that quarterback gets the Heisman.
Yeah.
You think that's going to work out that way?
Yeah, I do. It's going to be one of those two guys. I'm convinced of it now. All right, when we come back, a couple of parting thoughts for you. Game day's coming up at 4:30. Blazers and Lakers tip off from Moda at 7 here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, Godfather, that's going to do it for you and I. Great show today.
I had a lot of fun today.
Action-packed 90 minutes there with both Alex Brink and Dave Softy Mahler. Enjoy the game tomorrow. 4:30 is going to be awesome.
Yeah, can't wait.
I talked to Brad Ford, the news guy. He suggested that we might get a quarter of an inch during the course of that game. So a lot of rainfall potentially at Corvallis.
That's a lot of rain in that short amount of time.
I know. Yeah, I'm convinced that the rain would benefit Oregon State. Could be wrong. It could impact both teams. Wet football, the wet pigskin has a weird mind of its own sometimes.
Yes, it does. Those little piggies get slippery.
They get slippy. They get slippery sometimes. Oh, it's a great song. I believe, well, this is Phil Collins, but I think that Eric Clapton's playing the guitar part here.
Really?
Yep. I believe. Right there. That nice little riffy here. I think that's Clapton. It's not bad. Must be nice to call up a guy like Clapton and say, bro, you mind playing on this record here?
You know, he's done that for people. He's pretty famous for that, isn't he?
Yeah.
Sitting in.
Yeah, it's quite special.
Wow.
All right, keep it locked in. We have Blazers game day coming up next. I'll be with you up until 6 o'clock, and then the Lakers and Blazers will tip off. Enjoy your evening, my friend. Enjoy the games, and you and I will talk on Monday.
I'll be here.